I will now ask the clerk of this court to please read out the second charge.
Thank you. The second charge, all charges, you will find in the charge sheet that was placed in the dossier on your seat. For those members of the jury that have just arrived and missed the first witness testimony, welcome to you as well. There is a small mistake that was made in the formulation of the charges, for which we apologize, namely that in the charge sheet, the third charge is actually the second charge that we will be discussing today. So we will be reading the third charge. This is the second charge that we are discussing today. The third charge concerns comrades, past, present, and futures, seeking asylum and refuge in Europe. The charge reads as following. First, that as a result of the uses of Airbus weapons of mass destruction by the state of the Netherlands, in concert with other European states of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, the conditions for life for humans and non-humans were destroyed in Yemen and Libya, and a small number of humans fled their natures, cultures, and places of residence and sought refuge in Europe. The state of the Netherlands, together with its European conspirators and Airbus, produced destructive technologies of mass surveillance and policing, which they used against fleeing refugees and asylum seekers. Second, that Airbus enticed the state of the Netherlands and its European collaborators with lucrative profits and lured them to militarize European borders by using Airbus helicopters, sophisticated border surveillance systems, and space observation satellites. Third, that as part of such enticements and allurements, Airbus received a contract for 50 million euros from Frontex, the European Frontier Agency, established by the members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, to police and enforce the regime of illegalized migration maintained by the European Union and European Union states in the Mediterranean Sea, which is the main route for people of Yemen and Libya to escape the destruction of their homelands. Four, that aided, abetted, and incited by the state of the Netherlands and its European co-conspirators, Airbus used the authority vested in it by nation states to expand its own border surveillance and policing operations of weakened and poor states around the world, including Mali, Egypt, Ghana, Algeria, and Saudi Arabia. Five, that by destroying the conditions of life necessary for humans in their homelands of Yemen and Libya, and thereafter by forcibly stopping a small number of them from escaping the destruction, the state of the Netherlands and Airbus have violated the fundamental law of life, namely the entitlement of every species to live, and furthermore engaged in cultural, ecological, and human genocide in Yemen and Libya. These activities, if proved to be true, constitute intergenerational climate crimes against past, present, and future generations of humans, non-humans, cultures, and ecosystems under Section 3, A, B, C, D of the Intergenerational Climate Crimes Act.
Thank you very much. I will now call upon the witnesses to present their evidence in support of the charges. I will now call upon Bonyan Gamal, who is a lawyer based in Yemen.
Apologies, this is incorrect because the witnesses remains the same.
Yes.
So the witnesses will be Mohammed Al-Kashef.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, my apologies for that. I now call upon the witness to substantiate the charges. The witness for us now will be Mohammed Al-Kashef. Mohammed Al-Kashef is a Berlin-based human rights lawyer, consultant, researcher, and advocate, and he is a representative of Watch the Med. Al-Kashef will address the court in person and present his evidence through oral testimony and slides. Thank you. Okay, so.
Thanks. Thanks for having me here. I would like to briefly summarize the evidence through different research and efforts of a social movement for last years to show you how cooperation, global international cooperation like Airbus, involved not just in the border security, arms trade, but also directly affecting the climate crisis by their behavior. First slide, please. So to go briefly, what's Airbus and who's behind it? Because this is the thing that we said before today, there is a kind of a lack of transparency, or the information is there. Information is accessible, but actually it's kind of misoriented, like not straightforward, the meaning or the thing behind such a company. For many people, this is a civilian company providing flights and planes and help on the civil air transportation, but actually Airbus is a pan-European company, a result of several mergers, which has its official headquarters, as said, in Leiden, here in Netherlands, and mainly for tax reasons, even if it's not clear how much tax they pay, but by law and the regulation we know that how the tax system works here, comparing to other European states. Most of its production takes place in Germany, France, and Spain, states which also shareholders of the company. They are shareholders, Germany, France, Spain. Airbus products a broad range of military and security equipment next to civil aircraft. Its main product for border security is helicopters, which it's sold to, amongst other, Belarus, like other non-European states. Bulgaria, Belarus, Lithuania, Romania, and also and Ukraine and other European states like Slovenia and Finland and Germany. The purchases by Finland and Romania were funded by the EU. Airbus Border Security Division sold border security system to Romania, again with the EU funding. France, Spain, and Bulgaria, together with Israel Aerospace Industry, IAI. Airbus developed the Harfang UAV, the drones, which it promotes for border security work. Next slide, please. Airbus is involving globally in different arm production, arm trade, in different providing technology, border surveillance technology. And the main thing, or like when in their own website, they actually classify or like distribute that their products to the most thing that they are proud of. It's a source of pride for them. And for me, this is the real threat of our world. Next slide, please. And then, just to wash hands, and to be with the pretty faces saying that, okay, we all also support the climate justice, Airbus launched a program to climate change monitoring via satellite, and also there was an announcement that they are joining a growing list of companies outlining the environmental impact of their products, and also as aviation aims to reshape itself after the coronavirus crisis. It's funny because Airbus was, its products industry is one of the horrific climate, they are criminal, it's a criminal. Like for me, sorry, just, affecting climate not just with the environment, but if you are killing the human beings, this is affecting the climate. This is a crime against climate. And that's what happened. Killing human beings, killing creations and nature. Next slide, please. So some of infamous deals and contracts around the globe that Airbus did regarding the defense. In 2004, for instance, Romania awarded the company 734 million euros contract for a complete integrated system for border security, for monitoring, securing, and communicating. The system had everything to do with EU border security requirements, as Romania had to meet this before becoming an EU member in 2007. Signalise, a joint venture of Airbus and Atlas Electronic, which is a German company, was also responsible for the Spantoniev program for French coastal border surveillance. The project integrates the coastal surveillance system of the French Navy, Maritime Affairs, and Customs. Data collected through radar from several resources is combined into a common operational picture. Signalise sold a similar system to Bulgaria once again because of Schengen obligations connected to becoming an EU member. The Spanish Guardia Civil is another customer focusing on irregular migration to the Canaries and Balearic Islands and Gibraltar. Next slide, please. Airbus combines and subsidiaries heavy participated in many EU-funded border security R&I projects, including several aimed to the development and improvement of Eurosur. This includes process in which Airbus received 5 million euros as a part of a consortium led by Spanish technology company Indra to provide recommendations for the European-wide integrated maritime border control system. Another project was Lopos, seeking to demonstrate a pre-operational capability to deliver space-based monitoring in line with the requirements defined for the EU border surveillance system, Eurosur. Next, please. Airbus also involved in other space-based EU border security measures. The European Space Agency contracted an Airbus-led consortium in December 2017 for the comprehensive data and information access service to make its data available to users. This data is used for a wide range of objectives, including monitoring migration and border security, and by various agencies, including Frontex. For those who don't know Frontex, Frontex is the European agency for securing the European borders. And just to have the picture, so Frontex is the kind of, it's an NGO, started as NGO in Poland, and now it's a kind of a big monster in the European borders, not just the European borders, but also they play a big, important role in the externalization border. So also Frontex present in Africa, in Asia, in Balkan countries, all around Europe. And they are doing like the work of migration management, the controversial agenda for EU, by proxy. So they are kind of the subcontractor somehow implementing the policy, and then they have partners like Airbus and other similar companies to provide the techniques and the instruments and the tools. Next, please. So yeah, as mentioned, Airbus is important for border externalization efforts by the EU and particularly by Germany. This country donated a large amount of mainly Airbus-produced border equipment to Tunisia, including speedboats, document testing laboratory, night vision equipment, surveillance system, radar recognition system, and other partial military equipment and device for border security. Airbus C-295 and CN-235 helicopters are used by, amongst other, Mali, Egypt, and Ghana for a broad range of missions, including maritime border control. Algeria also purchased a border surveillance system from Airbus Border Security Division. Next, please. In this table, we can see that the contract between Airbus and Frontex, for example, the EIA, the Israeli company, the product is HERON 1. This is the drone that was shown in the previous picture, with a contract of 475 million euros. And then again, Frontex, that was in 2017. In 2019, with IAI and Airbus is the subcontractor of IAI, and we'll explain that later, with a 50 million euro. Next, please. And now to another level of surveillance, another level of border security, was the unmanned aircraft system, or like the solution for military and commercial applications that developed by Airbus. Satellite orbiting the Earth can only transmit data on the ground within sight. For this reason, Frontex uses the European Data Relay Satellite System, EDRS, of the Airbus Group as part of Copernicus to ensure communication at all times. Airbus is one of the main suppliers of space data with image from their radar satellites. Satellites obtained in the Earth can only transmit the data, and that's the rule of Airbus. Frontex, the European Border Agency, stated the total cost of the order at 50 million euros, the term of the contract, in 2 years. This can be extended up to twice for a further year. Also, Frontex decided on 2 companies to award the contract. One, for sure, is Airbus. And in the private pilot project, a framework contract was awarded to Airbus for flight with HERON 1 drones, the manufacturer of which IAI acts as a subcontractor. A second, please. The actionable intelligence, which is the main intelligence project now for have the cities for ICR, to have the whole surveillance over the cities, over the civilians, through a military industry. And then, actually, when I wonder, when I see that, like, okay, they are saying defense, and we were discussing before defense. Defending whom from whom? And when you see the operations and all these agreements and the things happening, particularly in the Mediterranean region, you will see that they are defending Europe from the migrants, from the Kama, from the asylum. And this is the war against asylum and against migrants. It started legally and politically, and now it's really implemented during not just killing people, not just to shoot fire at them, at happening in the Aegean, for example, which is a European territory, but also to witness that people are dying at sea and let them die. This is a murder. Next, please. So with Airbus, which also makes the HERON 1 available for the German armed forces in Mali and Afghanistan, and takes off island and waits there, Airbus received 470 million euros from Frontex, a total 4.75 million euros from Frontex, a total of which was agreed 600 flight tours. The drone was stationed in Crete. Flights took place mainly as part of the joint Frontex Operation Poseidon in the Aegean Sea. According to the IAI, the HERON 1 spent an average of 14 hours in the air per mission. Greek aviation authorities ensured that the drone could fly in non-segregated airspace out of sight, and it was controlled via satellite communication. Next, please. So this all about the HERON 1, like this amazing drone, which in 2018 an invention to tender the flight test on 120 calendar days with 2 differently sized models of maritime long-range surveillance. Followed the company, the Israeli company Aerospace Industrial, IAI, with the HERON 1, was awarded the contract which carries out air border surveillance service in sea areas in Greece and or Italy as part of a 2.5 million euros pilot project. Airbus currently stationing that HERON 1 at the International Airport in Malta. The company carried out its first flight on April 30, 2021. Technicians from Airbus in Germany are responsible for the control, and they will probably benefit from their previous training on behalf of the German armed forces. The first mission took place shortly afterwards as a part of Frontex mission. Since then, the drone has been flying with a steadily increasing flight duration, which in the first few weeks of the mission in the central Mediterranean was up to 17 hours. Flights take place mainly in the Libyan Sea Rescue Zone, and sometimes the aircraft also causes disabilities, as happened on one occasion when actually Malta stopped all the airline traffics for a few hours until the mission done. Next, please. So the network for the sky, and this is a kind of picture, that photo that they put in the official website of Airbus, and the space data highway cost at least 520 million euros, and it's subsidized, thanks. Subsidized as a public-private partnership between Airbus and the space agency ESA, while large public sums. Several countries are participating in the funding, including for sure Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Sweden, Belgium, and Great Britain as well, despite the Brexit. The development of the laser terminals located in Mecklenburg-Western Pomerania for receiving the data was carried out by the German ARIBUS Center, which is a Verein, non-profit organization, NGO, DLR. However, Airbus is the owner of the Space Data Highway, which is why the company markets the service alone. Frontex was the first customer. The EDRS is now also used by EMSA. The project coordination for maritime mean for environmental and systematic surveillance, which called Compass 2020, in which authorities, institutes, armaments companies, manufacturers of aerobatic system, and the NATO Organization for Science and Technology have come together, will also end in 2021. The project is led by the Portuguese Maritime Authority. Despite the Brexit, as mentioned, the British Border Police are also doing research in Compass 2020, and there's a fear from Airbus, a high-flying pseudo-satellite in the stratosphere will also be tested. Next, please. Next, please. This is Zephyr. Zephyr is the world's leading solar electric stratospheric unmanned aerial system, as mentioned in the website, with a wingspan of 25 meters and weighs less than 75 kilograms. A lot of information, a lot of technical information, a lot also of marketing, because actually we are not the customers, we are not the clients. The clients are different, and the clients also, some of them are the shareholders. So when they do the marketing, and I invite you all to visit the website, airbus.com, and you will really be amazed how they just marketing all the products as it's not a killing machines, as it's just something that for human civilization to live happy and peace. Zephyr is an invention, that solution currently under development by Airbus, and it had its first flight off in Arizona this year. Next, please. And now, the militarization of sea. It's not just the borders, but also the open sea. Airbus, with other companies which have participated in the EU research on drones in recent years, benefit from this when they are awarded later by EU agencies in the Mediterranean, the Israeli armament companies IAI and Elbit, or the prime contractor Airbus. Responsible for the contracts make money from the security of European migration policy. The Ministry of Defense in Greece decided in 2020 to lease the HERON 1 previously tested by Frontex in Crete for 3 years in a maritime configuration, and possibly also to buy it. The scenarios for the development are the sea patrolling, protection of sea and land borders, search and rescue operations, disaster management, and more. And it's funny, actually, because they stated search and rescue operation, and what we witness now for a long time, even before Corona, since 2017, that the European states are just watching. And even when there was a rescue mission in the Mediterranean in 2014 conducted by the Italian state, there was a lot of debates and discussion, and ended up just to be replaced by another military mission, and that was announced this is not for rescue, this is for security. And now bringing that search and rescue operation, and funny that they stated also, or put it up in their website, when they rescued a windsurfer from high sea who was suffering for a few hours, and they are showing how the techniques and the hard technology help it to save a human life. And I was wondering and asking what the difference between the windsurfer, white person surfing, and black people or non-white people crossing the borders trying to find a safer shelter, a safer place. What the difference? For me, there is no difference, but for sure there is a difference, and I would be happy to point out that personally, the observation and the experience and the practice made me reach the point this is related to the structural racism and the colonial approach. And I cannot deny it that we are living in the post-colonial world with all this history, with all this practice and all the things that happen in affecting us as a humans before everything. And second thing, that it doesn't matter because they are making the profit over other suffering. So keep other suffering, because others is not us. Because this is the difference of the definition between we, us, you, them. Next, please. So The first NH-90 delivered to the Spanish Air Force for search and rescue mission, and the unnamed operation by the EU different agency mean that even civil authorities once only pursue military drones and helicopters, and then the Spanish was one of the first to get it. Next, please. Here, the Sea Lion Airbus helicopter that has delivered the naval multi-rule helicopter to the Federal Office of Bundeswehr Equipment, the German Federal Information Technology and Service Support. And the agreement, like the contract, was that was further to be delivered by the end of 2019, which has happened. Next, please. France again, the great model that full of French military mission, including special operation, combat, search and rescue, tactical transport, and casualty and medical evacuation. So this is the multi-function helicopter. Next, please. This is the helicopter, like as you see. And this of one of the helicopters, people were fleeing from Libya, witnessed this sort of helicopter just patrolling around. Next, please. And this is in 2019 again, one of the famous agreements between the Serbian Minister of Defense and the Airbus representative making the press conference and taking the picture in front of the great product of H150M. Next, please. And now, this for me was kind of shocking or like fascinating, or maybe I'm naive, to see the air refoiling. And there is an explanation on the website how the mechanism of refoiling in the air. And I'm not technical, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an environmental researcher either. But I believe that to do such an operation in the air directly affecting our atmosphere, changing the environment for birds, for creation living in the sky. So this is, if we need really a direct climate crime, this is one. Spreading foil in the air. Next, please. And now, why we find it guilty. We find it guilty because actually the major rule in the European lobby for militarization of borders and the money for the port caches and equipment that contributes to reason that they force people to flee by arms exports to countries at war, countries with internal conflicts, and human rights abusers. There are supplies of helicopters for border surveillance to many European countries: Belarus, Bulgaria, Finland, Germany, Lithuania, Slovenia, Romania, and Ukraine, which is partly funded by the EU. The air suppliers for border security system, among others, to Romania, France, Spain, Bulgaria, and Germany. Contract with Libya. And if you have 10 minutes to watch the news every day, for sure you will find something about Libya in the news. And then Airbus going there to make a contract with Libya last year for supply of helicopters, among other things, of border surveillance equipment, Why they are guilty? Because the participation in many EU-funded research projects related to new border surveillance technologies to seize the freedom of movement of people. Not just the undocumented migrants, but also if you have a passport, I think you experienced that during Corona and all the control and restriction that we are going through. Preparation for the next era. The supplies for space initiatives, for among other things, border control, satellites for observations, the role in the externalization borders, all this thing makes me personally believe they are guilty and criminal. Without the legal framework, without the legitimacy, they are criminal. To kill a person or to be a reason behind killing a person, this is a crime. To destroy the environment of the people and their country and cause the war and feed it through weapon equipment, this is a crime. And then controlling the borders and preventing those people from crossing to a safer place, this is a crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for your presentation. And I think many of us had seen pictures of Airbus things, but I think you have shown all those dreadful killing machines, and that was both disturbing and enlightening. But may I now ask the judges if they have any questions for Mohammed?
Thank you very much. It was a very powerful testimony. And my questions may at first seem a little coming from the side, if you like. So I'll ask you to bear with me. But we're considering this particular Intergenerational Climate Crimes Act, which of course makes it a crime to undermine the climate that enables life to survive. Sins of omission as much a crime as sins of commission. Now you've shown us various sins of commission, blowing people up, and so on, preventing people from crossing into safety. These are crimes, I'd like to explore a little with you whether there are aggravated crimes in the choices that Airbus and the government that support it, notably the Netherlands, has made. And I'd like to explore that by just asking you a few questions about migration and what is considered and what surveillance of particular forms of migration Airbus doesn't do by choice. So does Airbus make any surveillance of the migration of companies around the world, wherever they want to go to? I mean, does it have any technologies that enable the public to know when a company is somehow moving from one jurisdiction to another and why? Is that something it surveys? Does it make any surveillance of activities that Dutch companies abroad are doing that might cause people to have to migrate? I'm asking because it seems that the choice is a very deliberate choice, as from your evidence, only to focus on people, not on the movement of capital or the destruction that's caused by the movement of capital, but to focus on the victims of capitalism's destruction. And that is a deliberate choice. And I just wanted to know whether that is also your view. I mean, from the evidence you presented, it seemed to be clear.
Yeah. Thanks. So, is there any surveillance that Airbus, if I understand the question right, if there is any surveillance that Airbus does cause the moving capital? So when we are talking about externalization borders, this is moving capital. This is the new form of colonialism, to send your troops there, not under the name of protection anymore, because it's not relevant to our world, but of border security, and keep the peace, and to building capacity, and to train. So this is moving capital. And they are causing, I was focusing on the people, on the victims, because that's all what matter, us, the human being on this earth. Not because we are selfish, but because we are living here, and we should not to be selfish, look at the things from our own perspective. That's why I was focusing on the people.
I wasn't asking you, I think you're quite right to focus on the people. I was asking whether Airbus had chosen in its technologies that it's developed to focus on policing and monitoring the victims of war, of destruction of the environment, of those who have been forced to move, instead of focusing on those who are causing people to have to move, which after all, they could be employing their technologies to look at, for example, where Shell's activities in Nigeria are causing oil spills that are causing people to move. I mean, they have space satellites that could pinpoint instantly where oil spills happening. But my understanding is they're not looking at that. They're looking instead to police those who are forced to move because of that pollution. And that's a deliberate choice. And I want to understand whether you feel that Airbus has made a deliberate choice, that there's more profit to be made by looking at or policing the victims of environmental degradation, the victims of war, than on trying to prevent war or prevent environmental degradation. These are choices.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree that it's a choice that made to make more profit on policing people and surveillance over the people. And when actually, to be honest, when politics go somewhere, the profiteers go after it. So even the migration nowadays, it's an industry. And we have this differentiation between undocumented migrant and legal migrant, and also all these classifications of the different passports ranks. Yes, they do. And it's clear that they are doing it, and they are also proud and transparent with that. They are saying that we do so.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Mohammed. I want to raise with you three issues. Yeah? The first one is about when you had started your presentation and you shared with us how this industry is operating. And in that, you mentioned that there were certain obligations placed on new entrants to join this club of countries. And it seems like, and that's why I want you please just to clarify, that to fulfill the obligation, the choice of the supplier was already made. So please, just on that first question, it's like you have a choice.
You want to?
Please.
So, yeah, there is some obligation, like we know that there is obligation to join the EU. and mostly it's about securing the border and keeping the unity of the Schengen area and securing it and put it like under the control. And most of the European land, non-European countries doing their best to do so we can join the EU. And actually that we are witness in the Balkan after 2015, the March of Hope, when the people just took the power and crossed the borders. And then the reaction was more intensively and repressively techniques and border security required from this country to secure these borders. And either it goes through money, I will give you fund, there is a grant like EU grants, there is EU member states help and support, and this bilateral cooperation, especially between Germany and France are playing like, and Sweden for sure, Dutch, Finland, but like in the let's say in the front, German and France is playing really a big role in this matter. So if you want to join us, this is the requirements, and it's obligatory to be with us. And it's accessible if you just say yes, and then we discuss and negotiate.
Thank you, Mark. So would you see what you've just described as a form of corporate state capture? Or is it state corporate capture? Yeah.
Corporate state corporate, but yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that, then the broader neoliberalization of these states, which means outsourcing and pushing things into the private sector itself, again, from what you had shared with us, these technologies themselves become the only means through which those obligations can be met. The technologies housed by the company called Airbus.
Yes, among others.
So in that, what's supplied by Airbus is a physical component. So, yeah.
Drones, helicopters.
But also from that aerial array that you showed us at the end.
Yeah.
So this is collecting data. And that's a lot of data. Like my colleague had raised just now, that data can be used for good, or it could be used aggressively in a form of violence. Yeah. Is any of this data, just the fact of holding the data, available to the citizenry of the country, like the Netherlands?
I don't know about Netherlands, but as a resident of Germany, it's not available.
Okay, so it's privileged then.
Yes, and also there's more I wanted to add, because you mentioned that this data could be used for good and you could use it for bad, but what we are see from the practice on the ground for over 2 years now, what's happening in this data communication, they communicate it and use it to prevent and intercept and push back migrants from reaching the EU territorial water. So this is also kind of a direct impact.
So that brings me to the last question for me, but it's for clarification that I'm raising these questions itself, yeah? And this one is speculative, but it's based on the data you've presented to us. So what would happen if there was no Airbus?
In a better world, there is no Airbus.
Much more.
Thank you for that. Mohammed, if I may, you mentioned that these border surveillance technologies are used to surveil migrants and asylum seekers who are fleeing to live, basically, as I understood it. Can you share with us at least one or perhaps two examples of that either you or your organization has experienced or observed about the Airbus technologies being used on asylum seekers or migrants? If you can just share something with us on that.
Yeah, so watch the med alarm phone, monitoring and documenting the violation across the borders in the Mediterranean. In 2019, there was an obvious case when a pot of migrants spotted by a drone, and then it was communicated, and just a few hours, and there was a lack of assistance from the whoever European side. There was no NGO rescue ships in the area, so it takes hours to reach the spot. And then just in a few hours, there was this so-called Libyan Coast Guard merchant vessel who wanted to intercept people. And afterwards, it was clear the communication, which was like the communication that happened to lead to this interception, pushback. And this is what we call pushback by proxy. And actually, there was a research report published last year, 2020, in a collaboration with the ASJ, the Italian legal think tank. And it's mainly focusing on really concrete examples with evidence, timeline, or everything about how it caused that, how it helps that, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. I will now, I think we have, you want to ask a couple of
Yeah, very quick ones actually. I'd just like to, I mean, if you've got any figures, I'd like to know how many people have been killed by Airbus weapons in Yemen.
I have no number. Like really, I have no number about how many people killed in Yemen. But as I'm originally Egyptian and related to this region, I know that what the Airbus and Saudi Arabia did to Yemen, the mass killing, the destruction of the country, and all this migration, like forcibly migration, flee from their land, and then the suffering that Yemenis face in Europe just to apply for asylum or like to have accepted cases, not just a positive one, but just to accept their case.
And just very quickly, I understand that worldwide, the largest number of migrants in the world are actually middle managers, going from one company to another and so on. By far the largest. And I know in the UK that the largest number of illegal migrants are actually Australians who have overstayed their visa. So I just wonder what technologies Airbus has developed to survey and control these migrants.
The undocumented migrants?
No, the largest number, which is middle managers going from one corporation to another around the world, swapping jobs around the world. That's the largest number of migrants in the world. Does Airbus have technology to survey these people? I mean, are they employed to control these people?
We have a lot of projects and programs and the satellites, and yes, they can monitor these people and surveillance them.
Okay.
They hear us now.
Okay, many thanks.
Okay, may I now invite members of the jury if you have any questions? Yes.
Hi, Mohammed. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. I'm from Greece, so I just wanted to focus on something that you said just lately in terms of the by proxy pushbacks, because at this very moment, you know it better than me, we have a change of government since 2019, and we have extremely violent pushbacks, illegal pushbacks, and a government that is denying the existence of the pushbacks. I was not aware that Airbus was part of this, so also thank you, doubly thank you for letting me know. I have two questions. First is, are you aware whether the Greek government has directly purchased military equipment or drones or what have you from Airbus, or whether France, in this case, because I have this suspicion, is acting like the middleman and selling even more expensive? And the second question was, just for you to clarify this by proxy, is a specific use of Airbus equipment and technology used not only in the sea, but also in land to prevent the arrival from Turkey of refugees, as in helps the process of the pushback?
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. So the first question, actually, as you said, like France, many times played the mediating role, even after they do the contract, and it was really crazy that to say, okay, this contract for this specific item in Italy or Greece, like we are not sure yet. We will see who will accept to have it. There is specific contracts between the Greek government and the Airbus, and it's mainly around and about helicopters, like they are requesting helicopters, the H-15.NM. And so this is for the first question. The second question, Airbus, among other companies and initiatives, also involved in this biometric identification technology, and they are developing these programs. And let's say that what present here was mainly that when Airbus is the main player, the one who have the rule, the important rule, or like the lead. But there is other initiatives and other programs that they are taking part of it and developing the technology of biometric identification. Plus, they have a kind of drones that they announced this year, and it's actually for Evros, like the land borders between Turkey and Greece, because people, as happening also in the Polish-Belarus borders, so there is this drones which can also surveillance the people and help to prevent the move.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take up more of your time, but just to make it clear, the biometric technology basically recognizes the facial characteristics of someone, but doesn't that imply that there is already pre-existing data by Airbus, or we don't know, that somehow identifies the people that are not supposed to enter, or is it that they're just recording faces? That's what I wanted to understand.
Everything related to the biometric identification, not just recording faces, and also like related it to the data that you already have in this amazing data banks, and also they take advantage over the corona, and now all of us has this kind of QR codes. You know, where are we going? What are we doing? Where to travel? This is also one of the development, by the way. Welcome.
Thank you, that's okay. Thank you, Mohammed, for this, again, a very shocking presentation. I have more of a comment, but I think it's important that it's made. When you talk about the externalization of borders and link this to like neo-colonialist modes, I have been a journalist for quite a while in Albania, where Frontex is currently operational, and the contract or the legal framework in which they operate is one of complete impunity. This Frontex cannot be held liable for anything they do on Albanian territory according to its agreement with the Albanian government. They cannot be summoned in courts, they cannot be asked to be a witness in any case, and any damage that Frontex does to any property of any Albanian citizen or the state has to be covered by the Albanian state. They operate with complete impunity in a complete legal vacuum in a country that is, at the moment, one of the main transit countries for refugees towards the EU. So this is truly unheard of. These people can do whatever they want, including 2 Albanian citizens.
Thanks. I want to mention something also, just a little proof that, look at Frontex officers wherever and bring me 1 black officer, 1 non-white officer.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. The presentations before also talked about how Airbus has close ties to government officials and influences arms policies and legislation. And I was wondering if you can tell something about whether Airbus actually also influences border policy and migration policies, as it is clear that they also profit from this.
So there is a lot of talks, meetings with policymakers in the EU, with member states. For sure, we don't know details about what happening in the behind closed doors. But when they promote that, they are working on analyzing and collecting data and communicating it. For sure, they influence it. Because everything has this 2 sides, the good and the bad. And for sure, as a business maker, I would like to get more profit. So they will influence for their own interest.
Can I ask you one question? I mean, we talked about Airbus, and it seems to me because they are in this industry or the business of war and of security and policing, and the states say that it's their responsibility to defend the nation, and there is Airbus making more and more technologies. You showed us so many. So does the initiative for these killing machines, if you like, come from Airbus, or does it come from states? Who takes the lead in saying, we want more surveillance technology, we want more sophisticated policing mechanisms for migrants and asylum seekers? Who takes the initiative in that?
Okay, first of all, actually, you will find that the state are shareholders in the company, and they have sharing interest. So I don't care who's take the initiative. I am more care like I'm more into the impact, into the practice, into the effect. So yeah, the state, and then they have the hand worker, or the hand worker have the influence and the power through the business and weapon, and influence the policymaker and the politician. Vice versa, doesn't matter.
Did you have a question? Sharon, did you have a question? Okay, no. Okay. Okay. On that note, I think I will now call on the defense witness. And we have summoned Airbus and the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate. If there is anybody present from any representative or official from Airbus or the Dutch Ministry, please do come forward and present your defense evidence.
Or a remark, yeah.
Was there a question? Yes?
It was not so much a question as something to add about the lobby, because I think that's an important point. And I think it's very clear that Airbus is not just merely profiting from militarized border policies, but it's as part of the military and security industry in Europe, one of the driving factors creating this policy. the military and security industry is very influential in lobby on border policy, in pushing a narrative that sees migration as a security problem, migrants as a threat to Europe, and then presenting their own equipment as the way to deal with it. And as such, they are really embraced by the European Union, by member states, as the experts on the issue. Yeah, you see that EU and member states' policies follow this discourse of migration as a security problem and really pick up anything that the industry pushes and put forward as a solution for this, so the whole militarization of borders. And you see Airbus taking a leading role in this. It's the arms company that has dozens and dozens of meetings with the European Commission over the last 10, 15 years. It is the company that has the most contact with Frontex, so it's really taking a leading role in this.
That as a comment? Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much.